for a constitutional system because it's based on a fundamental biblical doctrine of the depravity or the sin nature of all men. Secular humanists now have taken over our public institutions, and their tenet out of their manifesto is that all men are inherently good. They just got to have the right government program to steer them in the right direction. But let me ask you this, and perhaps you've considered it, perhaps you haven't. Would our founders, if in fact they had believed in that humanistic tenet that all men are inherently good and can be trusted, would they have created a system with a defined constitution that defines and limits the powers of government, that has a built-in system of checks and balances in 3 different branches, and then on top of all that required every person that was to seek political office to take an oath to uphold that document? I maintain that that is a direct consequence of their understanding of the nature of man, and that that's the reason we have all these exhortations. Washington, for example, said government is not eloquence, it's not reason, it's like fire. It's force. Like fire, it's a fearful master and a frightful servant. And so we need to recognize those things and understand the limited nature of government, especially insofar as this issue that you've been discussing here for several days regarding vaccinations. We have got to restore, in my view, the proper order of authority to restore our freedom. If parents are going to be continued to be deprived of not only their authority, but their responsibility as parents, and government continues to become the parent, you've seen it, who's raising the children. Both mom and dad are down at the salt mine. It's not good enough that government can siphon the productivity of just one of the individuals. They've got to have both of them down at the salt mine. Now, I don't know about you, but that's what I call slavery. And that's why we've got to in my view, establish an order authority by repealing such usurpations as compulsory attendance laws. And quite frankly, I think you need to consider whether it is even a proper function of government to be involved in schooling, period. I don't see that. Thank you for your recognition there of that. I've challenged individuals Jesus said in Matthew 28 that all authority is given to me in heaven and on earth. And in my Bible, in Ephesians, for example, it says that the children are to obey their parents, and their parents are to bring them up in the nurture and admonition of the Lord. In fact, it's even more specific than parents. It says the admonition is to fathers. Well, I don't think God could be so double-minded as to grant that authority to the parents and to the father, and then somewhere grant it to the civil magistrate also. I see nowhere in scriptures where that authority is given to the civil magistrate, and I think we really need to. It's a hard thing for us to convey because so many people think that government schooling is as American and apple pie and Chevrolet, but I really think we need to be honest about evaluating that. So I encourage people to do that. When that time comes, folks, perhaps for you, perhaps for me, it's a liberty of conscience issue for me. As I said, I couldn't in good conscience comply with compulsory attendance. I didn't want the state to assume that I was conceding their authority. And so I guess I had to practice a little civil disobedience. It turned out all right. I didn't go to jail. But perhaps that'll come for you in this issue of vaccination or somebody else. Let me say this. If you're challenged with the notion, especially from some of our Christian friends that want to advocate that biblically we are to submit to the civil magistrate, remember the principle of lex rex. Yes, we submit in the area of defined and authorized jurisdiction, but we are not required to submit, in my view, and I think a proper understanding of those principles would convey this, in areas of usurpation. The principle that our founders put forth in the Declaration regarding that issue says this, and you know these words from the Declaration of Independence. Prudence indeed will dictate that governments long established should not be abolished for light or transient reasons. But when and history has shown that people are more disposed to suffer while evils are sufferable than to right themselves. But here's how they said it. When a long train of abuses and usurpations occurs, evincing a design to place them under absolute despotism, it is their right. You know what? They didn't stop there. They said it is their right, it is their duty to abolish that government and to establish future safeguards for its citizens. And I don't know. And think about that, folks. If they would not have said it was your duty, if they didn't believe that we have an obligation to a power higher than government, to a sovereign creator God. And that's the basis of our American system, right, in my view. That's not real politically correct these days, but that's a lot. Listen, along that line, I got to tell you, I could tell you story after story of my time in the legislature, but I want to tell you one before I finish up here. We hold these truths to be self-evident, right? And you know the rest. I won't say it. Number one, there's truth. They presuppose that there's truth. In this age of moral relativism and situational ethics based on an evolutionary assumption, there are no absolutes. That's their tenet. There can be no absolutes. There's no truth. What's true for you is true for you. It may not be true. You know, that's what they say. We hold these truths to be self-evident. Self-evident. Have you ever thought of that? Self-evident means we don't even have to discuss it. And one of those self-evident truths, in my view, folks, is not only that we are endowed by our Creator with certain unalienable rights, but that one of those rights is that parents have the right to decide if or not their children are going to be vaccinated, or if their children are going to attend any school or anything like that. It's an authority issue. It is not an issue of whether it's a good idea or a bad idea. It's an issue of where does the authority lie. So when you are confronted, perhaps in your civil disobedience that you may have to in good conscience carry out, remember this: when you are exhorted by those who say you must submit, it's your duty to God to submit to the civil magistrate. Remember the principle of lex rex, that in fact, if you are abiding by the Constitution, you are the one that are upholding the rule of law. It is the civil magistrate that is violating the rule of law when they are operating outside of the Constitution. We have got to restore that foundational understanding, in my view. And so it is natural for man to indulge in the illusion of safety, said Patrick Henry. And I'll comment here. The illusion of safety of a government-run health care plan. The illusion of safety of government-mandated vaccinations. The illusion of safety of government schooling. No, the gentle government, folks, that promises to hold your hand as you cross the street refuses to let go when you get to the other side. But nonetheless, Patrick Henry had a wonderful inspiration for us when he conveyed these wonderful and timeless words. It is natural for man to indulge in the illusion of safety. We are apt to shut our eyes to a painful truth and listen to the song of a siren till she transforms us into beasts. Are we disposed to be of the number of those who having eyes see not, and having ears hear not? For my part, whatever anguish of spirit it may cost, I am willing to know the truth and to provide for it. What is it that gentlemen wish? What is it that they would have? Is life so dear, or peace so sweet, as to be purchased at the price of the chains of slavery? Forbid it, Almighty God. Patrick Henry said, I know not what course others may take, but as for me, give me liberty or give me death. And that's my sentiments to you today. Thank you very much, folks.